Today, we are talking journals and managing your life with pen and paper. Hi, I'm Lauren Valdez. I am Tiago's wife. I'm also the co-founder of Forte Labs. When I first started doing this productivity stuff with Tiago, I kept trying to copy Tiago's system and it kept failing. And it wasn't until I learned like, oh, this doesn't work for me because it's not the way I work. I am not Tiago. And I started making systems in a way that worked for my brain and the way I process. That's when I could really customize systems that actually stuck and I could actually develop habits. And that's what I want to leave you with. So I'm going to show you all my systems of how I manage things in my second brain, which is my notebooks. Man, I really hate the word productivity. It has this connotation of like driving to machines and getting things done fast and efficiently and blah, 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 blah. I actually think about productivity in a way about being intentional. Doing things with pen and paper is how I slow down to be more intentional and reflect more on my life to make sure that I am not just doing things to do things, but that the things I'm doing are really aligned with who I am and the kind of life I want to live. I have two productivity principles I live by. The first one is what is simple is sustainable. I try to keep my systems as simple as possible so I don't burn out, so I don't lose things, so I'm not wasting time trying to figure out how to use a new digital tool. This is why I do everything by pen and paper. It is just simple. My second productivity principle is what is pleasurable is motivating. It is so pleasurable for me to sit and write with my pretty pens and my journals and go outside and feel all peaceful. I love it. I crave it. So I make time for it. Whereas sitting in front of my computer with my calendar, my task manager and all that stuff, that's not pleasurable for me. That makes me feel like, why am I doing this? And that was the reason my digital systems regularly broke down. And once I moved to pen and paper, I realized that it was a lot more pleasurable for me. So for all of you nerdy folks out there, there is a ton of literature and evidence out there on why writing by hand fires up more synapses and connections in your brain, and you draw on more memories when you're writing by hand, and you form more memories when you're writing by hand than when you are typewriting. But for me, writing by hand is really about slowing down. I am the kind of person who has a really hard time saying no to things. And it's so easy when you have digital task managers to just like say yes to things, grab an email, copy and paste everything into your task manager. And I want to make the point that it's not about paper versus digital. It's knowing when it's best for me to use a tool that's digital or writing by pen and paper. There are a couple other reasons personally why I like to do things by hand as much as possible. Me and my digital life, we got issues. Like, I don't know if it's my psychic frequencies in the world that make technology break down in my hands, but I cannot even tell you how often I am trying to do something really basic and like my Bluetooth is not connecting, the app's freezing. It feels like there's often a lot of friction. And when you just get out a piece of paper and a pen, it's like there is no friction. You just go and do what you need to do. Whew, I got so many notebooks and I didn't even bring all of them here. I have my cheap CVS grocery store school notebooks that I use for my brain dump morning pages. Then I have my official bullet journal that comes from writer Carol's bullet journal method. This is what I use for my task manager and taking notes throughout the day during meetings and things like that. Then I have my weekly review journal, and this is where I kind of big picture look at the week and I put these little stickers of photos, and it's kind of like my memories of the highs and lows of the week. And then I have what I call my spell book. I know it's very hocus pocus. It's where I do my annual review, and I joke that it's for manifesting, but really it's my goal setting notebook. And these notebooks essentially correspond to my daily, weekly, monthly, and annual reviews. So these are my 4 notebooks, and I'm gonna take you through my practices for how I use these notebooks. I'm gonna start by showing you my daily review practice and what that looks like. starting out with my morning pages journaling. If you're familiar with morning pages, the practice, it comes from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist Way. For me, what this looks like is I write super fast in like 15 minutes to just get out all the gunk that is in my brain so that I can be present to my day. There really is no prompt for this, but I am someone who struggles with a lot of anxiety. Like I'm always replaying what just happened yesterday and what I said that was dumb and whatever. And normally in writing that out, I see the absurdity of my thoughts and I'm able to get distance from them and make peace with my feelings. But I'm often surprised by what comes out in my journaling. Like sometimes there is emotion that comes out that I didn't even know I was feeling, and I just lay it all out on the page. I see this as my space to say things that I would never say aloud, like my judgments about myself and others, my long rants and complaints about me and the world or my husband or whatever. Like I do something I call rage writing, where I just like rage on the page. I highly recommend it. It's really great. I wish I was like Tiago. Like I wish I could just like sit down and like go through my checklist and work, but that's not how I am. I have to process my feelings first before I can sit down and really work. Next, I'm going to show you my task management system, which I do following Ryder Carroll's bullet journal method. Ryder is someone who's a friend, and I know that he lives and breathes intentionality in his life. I'm actually like such a fan of his that Tiago's a little bit jealous. Time can't be made. It could only be taken. It can be taken from us or it can be taken by us. And that to me really encapsulates the purpose of a bullet journal. It's not just a task manager. It's really about making time to think about what you want to bring into your life. What are you saying yes to? And probably the most important thing about a bullet journal is you have to update it and you have to roll over manually your task by rewriting out the task. If I'm feeling resistance to rewriting a task from yesterday or last week over into a new week, that makes me pause and really think, do I want to be doing this in my life? And it's funny how easy it is to default to this passive mode of just like doing something because you can and maybe because you want to. But when I do it this way by hand, I really have to challenge myself. And I might roll over a task like 3 or 4 times before I realize, actually, Lauren, you don't want to do this. And I make peace. I go back to my morning pages and I make peace with the task that I don't want to do. Another thing I've noticed of moving to doing these things physically versus digitally, it is so easy to use an app to track something like your coffee or your sleep, or to do a quick capture like voice note, or, tell your Siri to remind you about X, Y, and Z. But I notice that anytime I pick up my phone for any reason, 9 times out of 10, I will start checking my notifications. 20 minutes have gone by and I don't remember why I picked up my phone in the first place. And there's something super gratifying about crossing off something on your to-do list when it's on paper. I just don't feel that when I check the little box on my task manager digitally, but it feels really good to do it with a pen and paper. This is my weekly review journal. It's a pretty simple practice. I review my photos from the past week and I pick out my favorite 2 to 3. I print them on this little printer and then I just write out, here's what happened this week, the good and the challenging and the lessons learned. I keep this pretty quick and pretty messy. My writing is hard to read. I don't overthink it. I don't try to make it fancy. I just try to make sure I get it done. Also, I'm not very rigid about any of these practices. If I miss them, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. And I love having this boundary of only taking one page, because then I don't overdo it. I keep things very concise. This is my spell book. It's very big and I only use it for what I call my moon ritual and my annual reviews. And it has like the chakras on it. So it just feels like more embodied, more spiritual. When I use this, I get out candles. I have a special reflective playlist. So I have fun with this. I call it LV's Book of Spells. My kids have found it and colored on it a little bit. And this is my book for, I call it manifesting. Someone else might call it goal setting. But I've never really resonated with the idea of setting goals. I like to do things in a way way that's more about setting an intention. And an intention for me is distinctive from a goal in that it's more about the way I want to be, the way I want to feel, like what I want to like create, rather than like, here's this thing I'm gonna do, which feels like separate than me. I feel like goals are almost like external, right? Mine is more like, and my intentions are more like internal, more about me and how I feel than about like what I accomplish. Similarly to my breakdown with the weekly reviews, I really struggled with a monthly review process as defined in the Getting Things Done method, or the way Tiago defines it in Building a Second Brain. My monthly reviews finally stuck when I had a cousin who started leading these new moon circles. For me, doing a ritual every new moon cycle, so every 28 days, I feel like I get a fresh start. I reflect on the past moon cycle, the past 28 days. I look at my photos, I look at my calendar, and I'm like, what happened that were like the highlights? What were the challenging moments that I survived? What were the lessons I learned? What do I want to let go of from this past moon cycle? And then I think about, well, what do I want to create in my life? And I set an intention for the new moon. And then every full moon, it's a time I reflect, and I reflect on how I'm doing on that intention. And I have some prompts that really guide me to think about like what is actually fulfilling in my life and what is not fulfilling. What I love about all this journaling I do is that it keeps things better in my memory and in my brain. Like I don't always have to go back and like review my notes. Because I wrote them by hand, I am more likely to recall what I wrote or what I thought. So every year on my birthday, I do a ritual where I reflect on the past year and my age and what I'm grateful for and what I want to let go of and what I want to call in. And I can do that practice in like an hour or two because I can just flip through my moon rituals and quickly glance, here's what happened in the past year. Here's how I grew. Here were the lessons I've learned. If you want to get started with the journaling practice and you feel a little overwhelmed by everything I shared, keep in mind the 2 productivity principles that I live by. 1, what is simple is sustainable. Start with what is simple. Maybe that's 1 notebook and maybe you set a timer for 15 minutes. The second principle is to just keep it pleasurable. Like it should feel good. You should crave it. If it doesn't feel that way for you, then maybe it's not for you, or maybe you need to figure out ways to make it more fun and enjoyable for you, like the way I have my sticker printer, or finding beautiful journals, or pack your journal in a bag as you go on a hike and then sit out in nature and journal. Like find the ways that are going to make it pleasurable for you so that you crave it, you want to do it, you want to incorporate it in your life. If you are trying to start any kind of habit, stay flexible with yourself. I skip journaling sessions all the time, and that's fine. I know that I will come back to it, and maybe that might be a few days, maybe that's a few weeks, but I will come back to it at some point because I will start losing my shit if I don't come back to it. If you want to learn more about these kinds of practices and using more embodied tools with your productivity, you can check out my Substack at laurenvaldez.substacks.com, where I write about this. And for members in our Building a Second Brain community, look out for some of my workshops where I'll be leading some journaling sessions, as well as some new moon and full moon ritual journaling sessions.